Gentlemen, Jackie, I'll start with yourself first. A great servant to the club. What does it mean to you to be here tonight?
It fills me with pride, obviously, and I'd like to thank the boss, Eddie Turnbull, for signing me. My career would have been finished at 23, 24.
Was it such a big move for you when you moved to Hibs?
If I'd known how big a move it was, I was getting booed before I arrived because I didn't know I was swapping for Pat Stanton. Eddie was a wee bit secretive, as was Jock Stein. But when I saw Alan Gordon and Pat walking up the car park at Celtic Park with a coat over his head, I thought there's something going on here. But I was that naive, I didn't twig, or I would ask Eddie for more money.
Pat, what do you remember about that moment in your career?
It just came as a complete surprise. Worked out a great move for myself. It was a great move for the Hibs because Hibs got a great player in Jackie McNamara, so both sides benefited.
Pat, we need to ask you the question. You're Hibs through and through. Said if they'd cut you, you'd bleed green. Your second favourite team is Hibs Reserves. To actually play for the club you support as a boy, and to do so much with Hibs, what does that mean to you?
Oh, coming from a Hibs family, my dad was a Hibs fanatic, and all my brothers were all Hibs supporters, and for one of the family to, play for the Hibs, I stood in the terrace and, all the families stood on their certain bits, and my dad took me as a kid, and as I got older I went myself, but to actually come from the terrace and to be on the park, but I found there was a wee bit of pressure being a local, coming for Craig Miller, you were a local and people saw how you played on a Saturday, some Saturdays you were murder and you had to face up to everybody, but there was pressure there, but I think that helped keep you on your toes.
You played so many great games throughout the 60s and in the early 70s, which one, is it easy to pick out one?
There's been some great games, the 7-0 game obviously springs to mind. But I can remember we had played Aberdeen, I think a day or two before that. We played Aberdeen at Easter Road. I think we beat them 3-2, but we should have hammered them. And I remember we're going into Easter Road that New Year's Day, and I picked up Jimmy and Alan Gordon. They're too miserable to use their own cars, And just going in the car, and it was Jimmy says, he says, somebody's going to catch it. And it just so happened that Hearts caught it,
What was it like? What was it like out there, being there on the park? Were you aware of just how many goals were coming, or was it just a case of getting the head down and getting on with the game?
Well, early on in the game, they had 2 chances, and they snatched to them. The chances were gone, and Hibs got a grip of things, and then the goals just started to come. But I think at half time we were warned that Hearts have got pride. They were getting beat 5-0 in their own park on New Year's Day by the Hibs.
Just say that again, Pat, just in case you didn't hear you in the back.
I think they all know that, but at half time, and we were warned. Eddie warned us, that they'll come at you. Don't go looking to score goals right away. You'll get chances late, and the 2 chances popped up, but we didn't want it to be 7-1.
7-0's a nice win. Jackie, when you came into Hibs, were you aware of the sort of passion that the fans had, and obviously the games that Pat was talking about there? What were your thoughts on the club at the time?
When I was playing with Celtic, breaking into the team, I thought Hibs were a better footballing team and should have won a hell of a lot more, because Celtic were in transition at the time, and I thought Hibs were a great footballing team, and I thought I was lucky to join them. I think it was my 12th or 13th game, the cruciate went. From what I'm told, the boss knew it was going to go because I failed the medical when he signed me, which filled me with confidence. So I was at the game for a wee while, and I was just like getting a new career again, starting up 4 or 5 months later.
And you became such a fantastic servant to the club. What games stand out for you? What was your favourite period when you were playing for Hibs?
Games that stand out was semi-final penalty win over Rangers. Ralph Gallagher and I were in the jail, so I missed it. So that stands out. Ralph thought he was flushing the toilet, he was pushing the emergency button all the time. A communal toilet. Games that stand out. I think again it goes back to Eddie Turnbull, the boss's coaching, that we made the semi-finals and Scottish Cup finals. Without being disrespectful, we were a team of journeymen. We didn't have any outstanding individuals like Pat's team, like Jimmy O'Rourke and Cropley and Brownlee, Blackley and your man, but he worked us and moulded us into a decent team. We had one, with the exception of Ali McLeod, who was terrific, but we were a hard working team and we had a team ethic, and I think that was down to Eddie's coaching.
We heard from Eddie obviously earlier on, still sharp as a tack here. What was he like if you're on the receiving end of his quiet work, shall we say?
Well, I was married, so I didn't disappear in any pubs in Aberdeen. My 3 sons are here, so you've not got any relatives in Aberdeen, boys. Maybe Copenhagen or... he wasn't... He didn't rant and rave. He could see where it was going wrong, and I know that the other managers, Fergie and Jim McLean, were shit scared of him, excuse my French. They were scared of him because they were worried what he was going to do next. They were more worried about what Eddie Turnbull was going to do next. And I was speaking to him before we come up. We played Celtic at Celtic Park. It's no Parkhead, by the way, it's Celtic Park. Everybody calls it Parkhead. There's not a place in Edinburgh called Parkhead. We played there, and I played with George Stewart and Ricky Fleming in front of me. We were back 3, this was in 1979 I think, 78. And we had Ali Brazil, the much maligned Benny, who was a terrific player for us, and Arthur Duncan playing as wing backs. Alfie Conn slaughtered us in the World Soccer magazine saying we'll get football stopped, playing with 5 defenders. Is Craig Levine listening? But what they couldn't see, we won 1-0 that day at Celtic Park, but the 2 full-backs were wing-backs, were pushing forward and let the rest of the boys go forward, but that was the intelligence of the man.
Great times, great characters, Pat. We've just already sort of dropped in a few names there, the likes of Jimmy Root that you mentioned, Alan Gordon, Callahan, Tony Higgins, obviously a big part of these big characters that played for Hibs. You must have had some happy times with certain individuals.
Well, my roommate was Jimmy O'Rourke.
Talking about misbehaving.
Well, Frank McAvenny was a Trappist monk compared to Jimmy. Pure amateur, you know. But you know, you things that happen to you. You know, one of my first games, things that you remember. One of my first games was against Dundee, and Gordon Smith was playing outside right for Dundee. And you know, people try to intimidate you. But I remember just prior to the game starting, you know, I'd been raised a Hibs supporter, you know, like Eddie's team, you know, Laurie and all these players, listen to Bobby Johnson, and here you're standing feet away from Gordon Smith. And Walter Gilbraith told me to try and kick him. Well, I would have to go home and face my dad, you know. But I remember Gordon Smith smiled at me, and I was frightened. This was Gordon Smith, you know. But I remember, this has nothing to do with football, but Mark Derrighetty was up here a wee minute ago, and one of the most frightening experiences I've had in my life is I was in New York, and me and him got lost. It was frightening.
Well, because you were with Mark Derrighetty, or because you were in New York?
He says, I know where we are. I says, well, we're in New York, but where are we? Honestly, I've never been so frightened. I said, we'll never find our hotel again. I was a grown man and I was nearly crying.
You mentioned Jimmy Root there. I mean, you know, I know you sort of gently, swiftly moved away from any incriminating stories, but I know there was a couple that were in your book that came out earlier this year.
Oh, Jimmy. Dear, dear.
How long have we got? How long do we have?
You know, Jimmy was very, with adults, Jimmy was very short with adults. I don't know if Jackie would agree, he was very abrasive, he wouldn't talk, he was terrific with kids. I always felt that the Hibs should have brought Jimmy in to look after the kids, because he was absolutely first class at that, and he had a good eye for a player. But some of the things.
You're not giving much away.
No, I'm trying to think of something about him, but
Wagon wheels.
Oh. Well, I'll tell you the story. I'll tell you the story about Jimmy and I went to Holy Cross together, and I remember it was lunchtime. We were getting the lines were called in. It was usually Tom O'Malley that took the lines in, but this particular day it was the rector with a black gown on, so we knew something was up. There was something extra special. And the chairman, the headmaster said, "It's my sad duty to tell you that a boy at this school has brought shame on the school." And we wondered what happened. What happened was there was a wee shop across the street. It's away now though. It was a man called George Crawford, a wee sweetie shop. And you used to go over there at lunchtime for your bacon rolls or whatever. But Jimmy had got caught stealing a wagon wheel.
We're still eating them.
And the rector says, "But he will be punished. Believe me, he will be punished." But anyway, we didn't know it was Jimmy at the time. But we were training down at Letham Park this day, and the guys were jogging around, and the wee shop was still there. And I looked at the shop and I remembered this thing. And I says to Jackie and Ralph, and I told them the story about Jimmy stealing the wagon wheel out of the shop. So as we were jogging around, I think it was Ralph or Jack says to Jimmy, "Jimmy, see that shop over there?" Jimmy went, "Aye." He says, "Do they still sell wagon wheels in it?" And Jimmy obviously knew who had told him. And he must have been standing about 50 yards away from me, and he came running right up to my face and he went, "Don't ever drag my good name through the mud." I remember years later on, we were at a golf outing, and Jimmy was sort of the guest of honour, and the guy said, "Is there any we could give him, a bottle of wine?" I said, "Give him a box of wagon wheels." I remember when they brought the wagon wheels through, and Jimmy just looked at me. He says, "You're never going to let me forget this, are you?" But I had great times with Jimmy. He was my roommate for years and years. Had some great times, and he was a much better player than people thought he was.
So, Jackie, in closing, if we can ask you, how could you sum up your feelings for the club? What do you think it is?
I'm just going to treasure the 3 goals that you mentioned.
Unfortunately, we couldn't find the footage. Otherwise we would have shown them.
Mine were before the Easter parade, I think. Well, I became a Hibs supporter because the boss got me here, saved my career, and I was in a scrap heap. But I'm supporting Partick Thistle tomorrow because my boy plays there now. But I'm a Hibs supporter.
Jackie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Pat, the last word to you, your feelings for this club of ours?
Oh, it's the only team I wanted to play for, and I couldn't believe it when I was playing for them, but I'd been brought up in the Hibs, that was it. And but to actually, to the first day that you ran up the tunnel to represent the Hibs, it was great, and I could see all my cousins in the crowd and waving to them. They had all climbed over the wall. They never paid to get in. But because I remember we used to have away over behind the old scoreboard, there was a telegraph pole there, and we used to go down in the bus for Craigmillar, and one would pay to get in, and then he'd go in, and there was a rope tied to the bottom of this thing, and he'd throw it over the wall, and we'd all climb up with your good suits on, but I had to stop it once I got in the first team.
Ladies and gentlemen, Pat Stanton and Jackie McNamara.